I don't want you here, Mama. You're embarrassing me. Those were the words my only son said to me on his wedding day into a microphone in front of more than 200 people. I can still hear the echo of his voice bouncing off the crystal chandeliers. Feel the way every set of eyes in that hotel ballroom slid over to me. I was standing near the back, holding a little gift bag with my trembling hands, the tissue paper crinkling because I couldn't stop shaking. The band had stopped playing. The clinking of cutlery, the laughter, the chatter, everything died, just like that. Silence fell heavy and suffocating, thicker than the cream-colored drapes hanging over the tall windows. I didn't move at first. I couldn't. My feet went cold inside my old black heels. My heart felt like somebody had slid it right out of my chest and dropped it onto the polished floor for everyone to step on. My son, Malik, stood under a ring of soft golden lights on that little stage next to his new bride, Alina. He was handsome, tall, chestnut skin glowing, his suit so sharp it could cut paper. I'd sewn the inside of his jacket with my own hands, stitching a tiny message under the lining. To my boy who made it, love Mama. He didn't know about that. Alina's mother, Delilah, sat at the head table in a pale gold gown, lips painted the color of red wine, eyes narrowed at me like I was a stain on her white tablecloth. She leaned in and whispered something to him before he cleared his throat and told the DJ to cut the music. Then he said it again, this time slower. I said, I don't want you here. Please, just go. I heard someone gasp. A fork fell and tingled against a plate. Somewhere in the back, a child started crying, and I couldn't tell if it was that baby or the sound inside my own chest. I looked down at my dress, the navy blue one I'd sewn for myself, the seams neat, the fabric soft against my skin. I had ironed it twice that morning, just to be sure. Simple, respectful, nothing flashy. My hair was pinned back. My hands still smelled faintly of the shea butter I'd rubbed into my fingers so they wouldn't crack. I had come to celebrate my child, not to be dismissed like an unwanted guest. I swallowed. My throat felt sanded raw. For a moment, I wondered if maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe this was some kind of bad joke. But then I saw it in his eyes, that mix of shame and irritation, like I'd showed up uninvited, like I wasn't the woman who carried him, fed him, prayed over him when he was burning up with fever at 3 a.m. I could have argued, I could have begged, I could have screamed. Instead, I took a slow breath, felt the air scrape down my chest, and straightened my back. My fingers loosened around the little gift bag. The cheap gold handles dug into my palm. I said, "All right, baby, if that's what you want." I set the gift on the empty chair closest to me. Then I turned, my knees wobbling, and walked toward the exit. My heels clicked softly on the floor, each sound sounding louder than the last in that heavy silence. No one stopped me. No one followed. Even the servers froze, holding trays in the air like statues. When I reached the hallway, the air was cooler, smelling faintly of citrus cleaner and hotel perfume. My hand shook as I reached into my small black purse and pulled out my old phone. I scrolled to a number I'd saved months ago, a name I never thought I'd call. I pressed it and brought the phone to my ear. My voice came out low, steady, almost too calm. It's time, I said, and I wish I could tell you that was the worst moment of my life. But child, that was only the beginning. My name is Loretta Mae Carter, but most folks who know me long enough just call me Miss Loretta, or Auntie Loretta if they're feeling sweet. I am 63 years old, my knees talk louder than the TV when I stand up, and I have lived enough life to fill a bookshelf. But for a long time, the only story that mattered to me was the one I was writing with my son. I had Malik when I was barely 21, in a one-bedroom walk-up on the south side of the city, where you could hear sirens at night and smell somebody frying chicken 2 doors down on Saturdays. His daddy, Ernest, was one of those men who made big promises with soft eyes and then disappeared when the bills started stacking up. One day, his boots were by the door. The next, they weren't. So it was just me and my baby. I remember the weight of him in my arms, the way his tiny hand would curl around my thumb like he was claiming me. "You're mine, Mama, don't go nowhere." The sound of his little breaths against my neck at 3 a.m. when the world outside was quiet and the only light came from that flickering street lamp by the window. I didn't have much, but I had a Singer sewing machine my grandmother left me. Old, heavy, loud as a train when it got going, but faithful. I set it up by the window, right where the light came in, and I started taking in hems and letting out waists for half the neighborhood. Soon I had a little business, Miss Loretta's Alterations. Folks would come by with dresses, uniforms, work pants split at the seams. I'd sit there with my coffee steaming on the windowsill, the smell of strong brew and starch in the air, and Malik would play with his toy cars at my feet. He grew up watching my hands move, threading needles, guiding fabric, pressing seams. He saw the burnt fingertips, the late nights, the way I'd press my palm against the small of my back and exhale long and tired, then sit back down to finish another job. "Mama, when I get big," he'd say, looking up at me with those big brown eyes, "you ain't gonna have to work like this no more. I'm gonna buy you a big house with stairs and a real backyard and a brand new machine that don't make all that noise." I'd laugh, brushing his hair back. "Baby, if the Lord just lets me keep this roof and your belly full, I'm already rich." But for secretly, in those quiet moments when the rain would patter against the window and the radio hummed low in the background, I believed him. I believed my son would grow up and make life lighter for both of us. He was a good boy, smart, respectful, the kind who'd help Miss Jackson upstairs carry her groceries without being asked. Teachers called me in just to tell me how polite he was, how helpful. I'd walk home from those meetings with my chest puffed up just a little. When he got a scholarship to college, first in our family to go, I cried over the kitchen sink, my hands still wet, dish towel pressed to my face. "You did it, baby," I told him, the dish towel pressed to my face. "You really did it." He hugged me from behind, his chin on my shoulder. "No, Mama," he whispered, "we did it." Back then, I thought our story was simple. A mother who gave everything, and a son who would one day give back. I didn't know there were cracks forming even then. Cracks I wouldn't see until it was almost too late. The first time Malik mentioned Alina, his voice changed. We were sitting at my small kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon, sunlight spilling through the thin curtains, dust dancing in the light like tiny secrets. I had a pot of collard greens simmering low on the stove, the smell filling the whole apartment, and a cornbread in the oven. Malik had come over with a bag of laundry, like he always did, complaining, but smiling about it the whole time. Between bites of fried chicken, he cleared his throat. "Mama, there's someone I want you to meet." I looked up from my plate. "Oh?" He shrugged, but that little shy smile tugging at his lips gave him away. "Her name's Alina. We work together. She's different." "Different how?" I asked, taking a sip of sweet tea. The glass felt cool in my hand, little beads of condensation running down my fingers. "She's smart, ambitious, comes from a good family." I raised an eyebrow. "And your family what? We come from the swamp?" He laughed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You know what I mean, Mama. They got money. Her mama owns some property development firm. They live up in North Hills. North Hills. That was a different world. Gated driveways, trimmed hedges, wide porches with big white columns. A far cry from my little brick building with the chipped paint and the mailbox that's stuck in the winter. I smiled anyway, because that's what mamas do. Well, if she makes my boy smile like that, I suppose I better meet her. The first time I saw Alina, it was at a cafe downtown. I'd chosen my best dress, a soft gray one I'd made years back, with little flowers embroidered around the collar. My palms were sweating around the handle of my purse as I walked in. The bell over the door chiming, the scent of coffee and cinnamon rushing over me. There she was, sitting with her back straight, one leg crossed over the other, white blouse crisp, nails pale pink and perfectly shaped. Malik stood when he saw me and kissed my cheek. Mama, this is Alina. She smiled, polite and pretty. Nice to finally meet you, Miss Loretta. Malik's told me so much about you. Just Loretta is fine, baby, I said, easing into the chair. But she kept calling me Miss Loretta like there was a glass wall between us. We talked about small things, the weather, the city, how busy their jobs were. She told me about her mother, Delilah, who ran her own company and played tennis at some country club I had only ever seen on TV. You'll love her, Alina said, stirring her latte. She's strong. Strong. The way she said it made the hair on my arms rise, but I smiled and nodded. Weeks later, Malik called again. Mama, Delilah wants to meet you. She's hosting a little dinner. Just family. Just family. I remember standing outside that big white house in North Hills, the porch lights glowing soft, the sky fading into a deep blue. My heart beat hard against my ribs as I smoothed down my dress and walked up those wide steps. The door opened before I could knock, and that's when I met the woman who would turn my son's heart against me, one quiet, careful moment at a time. I didn't know it yet, but the storm had already started gathering. Delilah's house smelled like lemon polish and expensive candles, not like home with its mix of coffee, soap, and whatever I had cooking on the stove. Everything in her foyer gleamed. The marble floor, the glass console table, the silver-framed photos of vacations and award ceremonies. She appeared at the top of the stairs like she'd been waiting there just for the moment. Tall, slim, dressed in a soft cream silk blouse and dark slacks, a string of pearls at her throat. Her hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. You must be Malik's mother, she said, walking down slowly, eyes traveling over me from head to toe. Yes, ma'am, I'm Loretta. I held out my hand. She took it, soft and cool, her fingers barely giving mine a squeeze before she let go. Delilah, she replied, come in, make yourself comfortable. Comfortable. I don't think that house had ever known comfort a day in its life. It knew expensive, it knew impressive, but comfort? No. We sat in a dining room that looked like it had been pulled from a magazine. Long, dark table, high-backed chairs, heavy curtains framing the windows. A crystal chandelier hung above us, casting little rainbows on the white plates. During dinner, Delilah asked polite questions about my little business. So, you sew? She said, sipping her wine. Yes, ma'am. I do alterations, custom dresses sometimes. Been doing it near 40 years now. How quaint, she's answered with a smile that never reached her eyes. It must be fulfilling. It keeps the lights on, I said simply, feeling heat creep up my neck. Malik shifted in his seat, but he didn't say anything. Alina talked about the honeymoon, about the destination wedding they'd considered, about how the hotel downtown was the next best thing. She mentioned the guest list, the band, the colors. Of course, Delilah added, cutting into her steak, we'll handle most of the arrangements. I told Malik there's no need to burden you with all the details. We want him to start his new life clean. Burden. Clean. I pressed my fingers together under the table, feeling the faint sting of an old pinprick on my thumb. I'd be happy to help if needed, I said softly. I've done a few wedding dresses in my time, know my way around a veil and a hem. Delilah smiled that same polite, sharp smile. Oh, I'm sure you do, but these vendors, well, they're used to a certain standard. It's better we let the professionals handle it, don't you think? I felt small for a moment. Just a seamstress trying to talk fabrics in a room full of people who bought dresses they never even wore twice. On the drive home, the street light slid over Malik's face as he drove, painting him in stripes of shadow and light. She's different, I said, staring out the window. Who, Mama? He asked. Yes. He chuckled. She just has high standards. That's how she built what she has. Don't take it personal. I wanted to tell him that respect don't cost what that chandelier did. It doesn't come on a lease or in a contract, but I bit my tongue until I tasted a little metal. I just want you to be happy, baby, I said. I am happy, he insisted. Alina's good for me. Her family, they can open doors. You know we didn't grow up with much. I'm trying to get us out of that, Mama. Us. But as weeks turned into months, us started to sound more like them. Meetings about the wedding came and went without me. Engagement parties I only heard about after the photos showed up online. The first time I saw a picture of them all together, Malik, Alina, and Delilah, standing close like a neat little family, while I was at home pinning the hem of a stranger's dress, something inside me went quiet. Not angry, not yet, just quiet. I told myself it was normal. Children grow, they change, they build their own lives. I repeated that like a prayer, folding it into my days, tucking it in with the laundry and the grocery lists and the late-night stitches. But deep in my chest, a little voice was whispering, "This doesn't feel right, Loretta. Something here ain't right at all." And soon enough, that little voice would be proved right. Delilah's house smelled like lemon polish and expensive candles, not like home, with its mix of coffee, soap, and whatever I had cooking on the stove. Everything in her foyer gleamed. The marble floor, the glass console table, the silver-framed photos of vacations and award ceremonies. She appeared at the top of the stairs like she'd been waiting there just for the moment. Tall, slim, dressed in a soft cream silk blouse and dark slacks, a string of pearls at her throat. Her hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. "You must be Malik's mother," she said, walking down slowly, eyes traveling over me from head to toe. "Yes, ma'am, I'm Loretta." I held out my hand. She took it, soft and cool, her fingers barely giving mine a squeeze before she let go. "Delilah," she replied. "Come in, make yourself comfortable." Comfortable. I don't think that house had ever known comfort a day in its life. It knew expensive, it knew impressive, but comfort, no. We sat in a dining room that looked like it had been pulled from a magazine. Long, dark table, high-backed chairs, heavy curtains framing the windows. A crystal chandelier hung above us, casting little rainbows on the white plates. During dinner, Delilah asked polite questions about my little business. "So you sew?" she said, sipping her wine. "Yes, ma'am. I do alterations, custom dresses sometimes. Been doing it near 40 years now." "How quaint," she answered, with a smile that never reached her eyes. "It must be Fulfilling. It keeps the lights on, I said simply, feeling heat creep up my neck. Malik shifted in his seat, but he didn't say anything. Alina talked about the honeymoon, about the destination wedding they'd considered, about how the hotel downtown was the next best thing. She mentioned the guest list, the band, the colors. The turning point didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came on a Wednesday afternoon, on a quiet street, with the sound of rain tapping softly against my window. I was at home in my little living room, the TV murmuring some afternoon talk show I wasn't really watching. A cup of tea sat on the coffee table, steam curling gently into the air, the smell of chamomile wrapping around me. My hands rested in my lap, still, for once, not holding fabric or thread. There was a knock at the door, 3 short taps. I opened it to find a young man in a navy jacket holding a clipboard and a large envelope. His shoes were wet from the rain, little water droplets clinging to his eyelashes. "Miss Loretta Carter?" "Yes, that's me." "I have some documents for you to sign." I let him in, offered him a towel for his face, a dry place to stand. He laid the envelope on the table next to my cooling tea. "What's all this?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. "Your son's already signed his part," he said, sliding the papers out. "It's just a transfer of ownership. A precaution," he said, "for your own protection." My fingers felt numb as I took the top page. The words blurred for a moment before snapping into focus. Quit claim deed. My house, my little 2-bedroom, the one I'd paid off slowly over the years with every hem, every altered sleeve, every late-night curtain job, was listed right there. And under grantee wasn't my name anymore. It was Malik Carter and Alina Green, joint tenants. I felt the world tilt, just a little. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why would my son do this?" The young man shifted, clearly uncomfortable. He said his fiancée's mother suggested it, said it would protect the property if anything happened to you, said it was all, family. Family. My heart started beating faster, my palms went damp. I could hear the rain harder now, the drops ticking against the glass like fingers tapping. I looked down at the signature already scrawled at the bottom of one page. Malik's handwriting. My baby's handwriting. I asked, even though I knew the answer. "He signed this?" "Yes, ma'am." Something inside me crumbled, but my face stayed strangely calm. Years of swallowing pain and smiling anyway had taught my muscles how to do that. "I need to think," I said finally, setting the paper down. "I don't sign nothing I don't understand." He nodded, relieved, and gathered his things. "I'll let Mr. Carter know, ma'am." When the door closed behind him, the silence in my little apartment felt louder than ever. The TV kept talking, but its sounds were far away, thin and meaningless. I picked up the deed again, my fingers trembling. I pictured Malik sitting somewhere in Delilah's big, shiny office, signing his name like it was nothing. I pictured Delilah standing behind him, manicured hand on his shoulder, smiling that cold, satisfied smile. "Protection," I whispered to myself. "For who?" My eyes burned, but the tears didn't fall. Instead, I went to the kitchen drawer where I kept my important papers, the birth certificates, the paid-off mortgage, the letter from the bank I'd framed once I finally owned this place outright. I laid the new deed beside them, like a stranger at a family table. Then I reached for a business card tucked in the back of that same drawer, the one I'd been given months ago by a woman whose dress I'd altered, a woman who'd sat in my shop one evening and told me between pinning and chatter how she'd discovered her husband had been hiding money and planning to leave her. She'd pressed that card in my hand then.
If you ever feel like something is off, call him. He finds the things people try to hide." I looked at that name now, felt the weight of it, and for the first time in a long time, my hand stopped shaking as I picked up the phone. Because in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just a sun drifting away. This was something darker, and I needed the truth, even if it broke me.
His name was Daniel Price, a quiet man with soft eyes and a notebook that never seemed to close. We met at a little diner 2 bus rides away from my neighborhood, the kind of place with red vinyl booths and the smell of burnt coffee and fried onions hanging in the air. I slid into the booth, my hands wrapped around a mug that was too hot to drink yet. "Miss Carter," he greeted me. "You said you felt uneasy about some documents?" I opened my purse, pulled out the deed, and set it between us. The paper looked out of place on that sticky table, like it was too clean to belong there. He read quietly, his eyes moving fast. Every few seconds he'd hum under his breath, like he'd found another piece of a puzzle only he could see. "Your son signed this," he said finally. "So they tell me. And you never agreed to this?" "No, sir. This house is the only thing I own free and clear." I swallowed hard. It's the only thing I was sure I could leave my boy one day, in my own time. He nodded slowly. "Do you want me to look into it? See if there's more going on than what's on paper?" I stared at my reflection in the streaked diner window. My face looked tired, lined. I traced one of those lines lightly with my fingertip, feeling the years there. I want to know why my child feels like he needs to put his name where mine used to be. And I want to know how much of that is coming from him and how much is coming from that woman. So he started digging. A week passed, then 2. Each day felt like walking with a pebble in my shoe, annoying at first, then steadily more painful, until it was all I could think about. Rainy mornings, late nights, quiet afternoons with the machine humming and fabric under my hands. I carried that gnawing worry everywhere. My coffee went cold untouched. My tea grew lukewarm on the table while I stared at nothing. One Thursday evening, just as I was closing the metal grate over my little shop, my phone buzzed. "Miss Carter?" Daniel's voice came through, calm but tighter than before. "I think you should hear something." He'd managed to place a recorder, he told me, Delilah's office. It was a risky thing, not entirely by the book, but he'd done it for other clients who'd been lied to, and he had a feeling about this one. "Are you sure you want to hear it?" he asked. I sat at my sewing table, the only light coming from the lamp above me. The rest of the shop was shadows stacked on shadows. My hands were empty for once, lying flat on the smooth wood. "I need to," I whispered. There was a click, a soft hum of office air conditioning. Then I heard my son's voice, clear and familiar, and somehow not. "Do you think she'll sign it?" Malik asked. Delilah's voice followed, smooth as silk. "She will. Your mother's practical. She doesn't understand how these things work. This is for her own good, Malik." Silence. I imagined his face, the little crease between his eyebrows he got when he was thinking too hard. It feels wrong. She loves that house. "And you love your future, don't you?" Delilah replied, a hint of impatience sliding into her tone. "You told me you want to give Alina the life she deserves. That costs money, security, assets. You can't build that if everything is still in your mother's name." My heart thudded slowly, painfully. "She sacrificed a lot for me," he said, voice softer. "I don't want her to think I'm taking from her." "You're not taking," Delilah insisted. "You're organizing. Besides, when she's gone, it comes to you anyway. You're just speeding up the process. And if she really loves you, she'll understand that sometimes the older generation has to step aside so the younger one can rise. A chair creaked. Someone sighed. What if she refuses? He asked. The morning of the wedding, the sky was a dull, steely gray, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or not. I woke up before my alarm, the room still dim, my old clock radio blinking 5:27 at me. For a few minutes, I just lay there, listening to the distant sound of a garbage truck, the soft whir of my ceiling fan, the familiar creaks of my old building settling into itself. My chest felt heavy, like someone had laid a folded quilt right over my heart. I got up slowly, my joints popping a little in protest. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection stared back at me, lines deeper than they were 10 years ago, hair more silver threaded through the black. I smoothed my hands down my cheeks, patted in a bit of cream, and whispered to myself, "You can do this, Loretta." I chose my navy blue dress, the one I'd made with extra care, with tiny hand-stitched details only I knew were there. I pressed it carefully, the hiss of steam rising as the iron glided over the fabric. The smell of hot cotton and starch filled the air. I pinned my hair back, put on the small gold hoop earrings Malik had bought me with his first real paycheck. I remembered how proud he'd been that day, pressing the little box into my hands. "For the best mama in the world," he'd said. I held those words like something fragile, even as the memory cut fresh now. The hotel was grand. Tall glass windows, marble floors, the kind of place where your footsteps sound like they're echoing in a church. As I walked through the lobby, my heels clicking softly, I could hear laughter spilling from the ballroom. Music, clinking glasses. At the entrance, a young woman with a clipboard and a tight dress checked names. Her smile faltered just a second when I told her who I was. "Oh, you're the groom's mother," she said. "They said you might be coming." Might. I swallowed the hurt. "Yes, baby, I'm here." Inside, the room was all white and gold and glitter. The tables were dressed like they were going to a ball, the centerpieces taller than some of the guests. I looked around for my seat, scanning the little name cards. They put me near the back, table 12. No one greeted me when I sat down. The couple next to me talked over me like I was part of the chair. I folded my hands in my lap and watched my son. Malik was laughing at the head table, clinking glasses, leaning in close to whisper something to Alina. Delilah sat on Alina's other side, her hand resting possessively on her daughter's arm, her eyes sharp as she surveyed the room. For a moment, when Malik's gaze brushed past me and our eyes met, my heart leaped. Maybe he'd come over. Maybe he'd hug me, whisper, "I'm glad you're here, Mama." But the moment passed. He looked away. After dinner, the toast started. Alina's father spoke first, voice thick with emotion and expensive wine. Delilah followed, her words smooth, her smile glowing. She talked about two families becoming one, about letting go of the past and embracing the future. Not once did she look in my direction. Then the MC announced, "Now, a few words from our groom." Malik stood, adjusting his tie. As he took the microphone, laughter died down. The lights dimmed just a touch, a soft glow settling over the room. He started sweet, thanked the guests, praised his bride, thanked her parents for their support and guidance. My heart squeezed when he said the words support and guidance, like those things had only started when he met them. Then his gaze slid toward the back of the room, toward me. His jaw tightened. I saw the slightest shake in his hand holding the mic. Delilah's eyes flicked to me too, then back to him. And with that one look, everything shifted. Because the next words that came out of his mouth would slice through whatever was left of the bond between us. I didn't see the rest with my own eyes. Some things, child, you don't need to witness to feel. The echo of them travels, finds you anyway. I went home that night in a quiet taxi, the city lights smearing past like wet paint through the window. My dress still smelled faintly of someone else's perfume from sitting so close to strangers at that fancy table. I held my purse tight in my lap, fingers digging into the leather. When I got back to my little apartment, I kicked off my shoes by the door and walked straight to the kitchen. The clock on the stove blinked 11:07. I put the kettle on, the hiss and rattle of the water, a small, familiar comfort. I poured myself tea in my chipped white mug, the one with the little blue flowers, and sat by the window. Outside, the street was quiet. A stray cat slunk along the sidewalk. Somewhere, a siren wailed faintly, then faded. My phone buzzed. "Miss Carter?" Daniel's voice came softly. "It's done." He and Cornelius had gone upstairs after my call, escorted by security and a lawyer Cornelius trusted like a son. They'd walked into that ballroom just as the party tried to resume, just as people were pretending nothing had happened, as if a mother hadn't been publicly pushed aside. Cornelius had demanded the microphone, an old man, back straight, eyes sharper than any of them expected. He'd told the room the wedding was over. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. He laid out the documents, the recordings, the deed. He spoke of trusts and conditions, of how his granddaughter's inheritance was not a toy for schemers to play with. He spoke of his daughter's manipulation, of the pattern of control he'd watched grow in her like a weed he'd pretended not to see. Then he played the recording. Delilah's voice, Malik's voice, their own words convicting them in front of everyone. The talk of speeding up the process, of the older generations stepping aside. The casual way they'd spoken of me, like a piece of furniture to be moved out of the way. Alina, I'm told, went pale, then red, then something else entirely. Broken. She took off her ring with trembling fingers and set it on the white tablecloth in front of Malik, her tears falling silently. She walked out with her grandfather, leaving her mother standing there, painted and polished and suddenly very, very alone. The lawyers moved quickly. Accounts were frozen, papers were served, the trust locked down tight. And my boy. Daniel's voice softened even more when he told me. He just stood there, Miss Carter, like someone had pulled the bones out of him. No shouting, no excuses, just empty. For a long time after I hung up, I sat quietly. The tea in my cup went cold. My hands stopped shaking. I felt no joy, no triumph, just a deep, aching sadness. Karma is a quiet thing, you know? It doesn't always arrive with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it shows up in a hotel ballroom wearing a suit and carrying a folder of papers. Sometimes it's an old man finally saying, "Enough." The next few days, the city buzzed. People whispered. The video of Cornelius exposing everything found its way online, of course. Someone had filmed the part where he said, "A man who disrespects the mother who raised him will never be safe in the house he tries to build." Some called Malik a villain. Others painted him as a victim of Delilah's schemes. The truth, like always, sat somewhere in between. A grown man who let someone else do his thinking, who traded his mama's trust for a seat at someone else's table. A week later, there was a knock at my door. I knew who it was before I opened it. My heart fluttered like a trapped bird in my chest as I reached for the knob. My fingers brushed the cool metal, then paused. I took a deep breath, because on the other side of that door was the child I had loved more than my own breath, and the man who had broken my heart.
"I know not everyone here agrees with my choices," Malik began, his voice a little strained. "Not everyone understands the life I'm trying to build. The room went quiet in that peculiar way where people still breathe and blink and shift in their seats, but all the small sounds become loud. The clink of ice in a glass, the rustle of a napkin, the soft cough in the corner. He glanced at Delilah again. She gave the barest nod. It was subtle, but a mother knows when someone else is steering her child. I grew up different from the world my wife comes from, he continued. We didn't have much. We made do, and I'm grateful for that, truly. He said the word grateful like he was reading it off a cue card. But there comes a time, he said, voice firming up, when a man has to put his new family first, when he has to let go of things that hold him back, old ways, old expectations. My fingers curled around the edge of the tablecloth. It felt rough under my fingertips, despite its fine weave. It's not easy, he added, especially when some people refuse to accept change. Someone cleared their throat. A whisper fluttered across the room like the wing of a bird. He took a deep breath, then looked straight at me. His eyes were hard, stranger's eyes. Mama? He said into the microphone, and the words sounded wrong up there, hollow. I didn't expect you to come. I felt every head swivel, felt the weight of all that curiosity land on my shoulders. I asked you, I begged you, to trust me, to sign the papers, to let me handle things. But you refused. You made it about you, like you always do. My heart stuttered. It felt like the room had shrunk around me. I love you, he went on, but I won't let your fear ruin what I'm building. Not tonight. Not in front of my wife and her family. So I'm asking you, please, don't make a scene. He swallowed, eyes glistening just a bit. Then, clear and sharp, words slicing right through me, he said, Mama, I don't want you here. You're embarrassing me. Please, just go. There it was, in front of everyone. A laugh, a mutter, a gasp that sounded like someone had lost their breath. For a heartbeat, I thought I might faint. The room tilted, my vision swimming for a moment, my ears ringing. I could feel my pulse in my throat, a hot, painful throb. Then, strangely, everything steadied. I saw Delilah watching me, chin tilted, lips curved in a small, satisfied smile. I saw Alina looking between her mother and me, confused and hurt, but silent. I saw people at the tables pretending to look away, but their eyes were still on me. And in that moment, the last of my illusions burned away. The boy I'd rocked and fed and prayed over wasn't standing there. A man who'd chosen pride over love was. A man who'd let someone else write the script for his life and now was reading it line by line. I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs scraped softly against the floor. My napkin slid from my lap and fluttered to the ground. I stood. My knees trembled, but my back stayed straight. All right, baby, I said, my voice steady, though my lips quivered. If that's what you want. I picked up my small purse. Instead of crying, I gave him the gentlest nod I could manage. Then I turned and walked out of that ballroom, each step measured, feeling 200 eyes on my back. The hallway outside was cool and quiet, the carpet soft, swallowing the sound of my footsteps. My hands shook as I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to a name that months ago had written his number on a napkin and pressed it into my palm. Cornelius Green. Alina's grandfather, Delilah's father. A man who, unlike his daughter, still knew the meaning of respect. The phone rang once, twice. Miss Loretta? His old, gravelly voice came through.
"It's time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "They did it just like we thought." "I'm already in the lobby," he replied, "and I didn't come alone." What came next shattered the shiny world Delilah had built, piece by piece.
When I opened the door, Malik looked smaller somehow. Not in height, he was still my tall boy, but in spirit. His shoulders slumped, his eyes rimmed red, his suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Hey, Mama," he said, voice rough. The hallway light buzzed softly above his head. I could smell rain on his jacket and a faint hint of cologne that used to make me smile. Now it just made my chest tight. "Come on in," I said quietly, stepping aside. He walked in slowly, like he didn't feel sure of his right to be there. His eyes flicked over the familiar things, the couch he used to nap on after school, the framed picture of him at 8 years old with missing front teeth, holding the trophy from his first spelling bee, the sewing machine by the window. He sat down at the table without being asked, in the same chair he'd always favored. I moved around the kitchen out of habit, putting the kettle on. For a minute, we let the small sounds fill the space. The kettle starting to hum, the click of the stove, the distant rumble of a passing bus. "I'm sorry," he burst out finally, the words tumbling over each other. "Mama, I'm so sorry." I turned to look at him. His hands were pressed over his face, fingertips digging into his cheeks. His shoulders shook. "I messed everything up. The wedding, Alina, the house, you. I don't even know how I got here." A tear slipped down my own cheek then, hot and slow. "Oh, baby," I whispered, pulling out the chair beside him and sitting down. He dropped his hands, eyes searching mine. "How?" "One step at a time," I said gently. "Little choices, little silences. Little times you heard that voice in your chest and ignored it. Little moments you chose comfort over courage. It don't happen all at once, Malik. People don't wake up evil one morning. They drift." He looked down at his hands, turning them over like he didn't recognize them. "I let her talk about you like you were a problem to solve. I let her make me feel ashamed of where I come from, of you." He swallowed hard, tears spilling over again, "and I didn't stop her." The kettle whistled then, sharp and shrill. I got up slowly and turned off the stove, poured the hot water over the tea bags, watched the steam rise between us. "I told you what you said at that wedding," I told him, setting a cup in front of him. "Those words won't ever leave me, Malik. They cut deep." He flinched. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." "Yes," I said softly, "you were." He looked up, desperate. "Can you forgive me?" I sat back down, wrapping my fingers around my own mug, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. "Forgiveness," I said slowly, "don't mean forgetting. It don't mean pretending it never happened. It means I choose not to carry hate for you in my heart. Hate is too heavy for these old bones." His chin trembled. "So, is that a yes?" I watched him, the boy I'd raised, the man he was still trying to become. I saw the pride chipped away, the illusion shattered, the raw hurt underneath. "Yes," I said, at last, "I forgive you." He sagged with relief, a sob escaping him. "But listen to me, Malik," I added, my voice steady. "Forgiveness is a gift I give from my own peace. Trust, now that one you're going to have to earn back brick by brick, day by day, word by word. I can't hand that to you like a cup of tea." He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. "You're not moving into this house," I said gently but firmly. "You're not putting your name on my deed. One day, when the Lord calls me home, the lawyer will do what I asked him to do with this place. But while I'm breathing, I decide what happens to my home. Not you, not any woman. You understand?" "Yes, ma'am," he whispered. "And if you ever again let somebody talk about your mama like I'm something to be moved out the way," I shook my head, then you and I will be done in a way no paperwork can fix." His eyes widened. "Never," he said hoarsely, "never again." We sat there for a long time, sipping tea that cooled too fast, letting the silence settle, not cold this time, but cautious. Later, after he left, I stood by the window watching him walk down the street, shoulders still heavy, but steps a little more grounded. I knew life wouldn't suddenly become sweet and simple. There would be whispers, there would be people who only remembered the scandal, not the healing. There would be days when the hurt flared up fresh, like an old scar aching when the rain comes. But there would also be mornings when I'd wake up, make my coffee, open my shop, and feel something like peace resting on my shoulders. Child, if you've listened to me this far, let me leave you with this. Love your children, but don't worship them. Give to your family, but don't erase yourself. Listen when your spirit whispers, "This doesn't feel right," even if the whole room is telling you to be quiet. Respect is not a favor, it's a foundation. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your child, for yourself, for the generations watching, is to step back, let the truth stand tall, and allow consequences to do the teaching you never could. My heart cracked the day my son told me to leave, but it also opened. And in that opening, I found something I thought I'd lost long ago. My own worth. That, baby, is a lesson I pray you never have to learn the hard way.